Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. We got a doozy of a video for you today, guys. So I hope you're sitting down, strap in, shut up, and hold on tight. Because my friends, I want you today to imagine that it's the year 2019. It's December of 2019. The worst thing going on in the world is that maybe Australia is burning down and the lackluster anticlimactic release of the Cybertruck, okay, which was a big disappointment to a lot of people who later came to enjoy it and then pre-order one, myself included. That's the worst thing that's going on. Now, try to, with that frame of reference, absorb today's information, okay? And I promise you, if you do this, you will be able to perceive the true danger of the situation we are in. Because the problem with incrementally, day in, day out, desensitizing ourselves to all this bad news, we lose sight of just how far we've come. Now, before I do that, I want to send a shout out to a YouTube channel called World of Apollonia. Now, disclaimer here, I don't know if there's nuttiness going on in this channel. I've only watched a couple of her videos. There may well be, so don't associate me with that. I just came across a video she did the other day where she's in a Walmart, and over the intercom, they start talking about how you need to stock up on food and water, and for more information, go to ready.gov. So we're starting to see this collaboration between the big box stores and the government. Now, apparently in the comment section of that video, some people say that this is something that happens regularly, especially during Emergency Preparedness Month, and perhaps that's all it is, but the timing of it, well, is a little sus, if you ask me. Anyways, the government wants you to be mildly prepared because they don't want to have these huge lineups of people looking for MREs after disaster strikes. They just want small, manageable lineups. You see, they want to be able to implement martial law with relative ease, and they can't do that if people are banging down their door for meals ready to eat. So they encourage you to be 72 hours prepared, but they don't want you to be Canadian Prepper, off-grid, CCFR, promoting, firearms rights, advocating prepared. They don't want you to go that far, just 72 hours, because it gives them that little window of opportunity to put everybody under lockdown. Now, shout out to her for posting that video. It's something I've never heard here in Canada. We do have our own emergency preparedness initiatives that are taking shape here, but I've never heard it in a Walmart yet. So that's somewhat concerning in light of the context of all the chaos going on. In Britain, they rolled out an emergency alert system, or actually they're going to be rolling it out in October, which is going to send people alerts to their phones. Now, we've had this here for years, so I'm surprised that in Britain they're only now getting it. But of course, once again, it's the timing that's kind of strange. And they're saying this is going to be used for flooding, fires, extreme weather, public health emergencies, and that's where they kind of stop. I guess they stopped short of saying nuclear air raid sirens. But if I was in the UK, I would be concerned about that. Excuse me for a minute, guys. Throat's getting dry here. Where should we go with what's going on today? Now, let's start off in China, okay? Because this story is very concerning for me. 70 cities are currently under quarantine in China, and one of which is a city of 21 million people. And get a load of this, okay? The factories are still running in these cities, and here's what they're doing to keep the factories running. Volkswagen and Foxconn, the company that makes the iPhones and virtue signals about this, that, and everything, says that they will keep their factories running under a closed-loop system. That's the same company who has the nets so that if people try to take their own lives, they can't. Which essentially means quarantining employees at the factory so they can keep working, often requiring them to sleep on the factory floor, making products for U.S. consumers while sleeping on the factory floor. How much longer do you think China will continue to reduce its inhabitants to this type of coercion just to make us cheap crap, especially in light of some of the next stories that we're going to talk about? Now, they're saying that Chengdu, the city of 21 million, already resembles the Shanghai horror in several respects. And take note, guys, because this very well could be our future, including panic shoppers scrambling for food and drones flying through deserted streets to broadcast orders like, "This community is now under lockdown. Stay indoors." And apparently the social media is buzzing with the story of the guy who tried to warn the people of Chengdu that the lockdown was coming 2 days prior to its being implemented. Now, this is concerning because I guess they're trying to get him on, inciting a panic or something like that. Because I'm pretty sure in Canada, there's already laws for this, but we need to be very careful as preparedness channels that what we are doing is not considered inciting a panic. That's why we always have to disclaim and caveat these things that we say, in that, take it all with a grain of salt. Because the last thing you want is to have the government limit your ability to warn people about events or things that are coming based on, information that you're receiving or intuitions that you might have. Sometimes, of course, it's not going to be right. But the last thing you want is the government with the ability to take away your right to communicate to people. Because we all know, and my thesis has long been standing on this channel, that the government is going to do whatever they can to minimize panic. Therefore, they're not going to tell us the truth. So it's important that we have that ability to alert each other to what's going on. Now, according to the U.S. Air Force General Clinton Hinote, I don't know how you say that name, he's going to make attacking Taiwan one of the most difficult military operations in history. And he's sending this message to the Chinese. This is supposed to be a country who we have strategic ambiguity with over the issue of Taiwan, meaning that we don't take a side. Now, the U.S. Air Force General is saying that we're going to make it really hard to do offensive maneuvers against our friends, and I would hope that our potential adversary, China, might think about it if they're contemplating getting across the 90-mile-long Taiwan Strait, and they realize we're not just going to let their logistics flow. He actually said that. We're not going to let their logistics flow. Now, for starters, I'm pretty sure the Chinese are learning from the mistakes of the Russians when it comes to logistics. And they probably won't make that mistake again. But if the U.S. Air Force General is essentially saying that they are going to directly intervene with the flow of logistical support or military through the Taiwan Strait, then obviously that's a declaration of war, essentially. That's not saying that you're going to fight China by proxy by Taiwan. They're literally saying we're not just going to let logistics flow. And we can't be under the impression at this point that China doesn't acknowledge that they are going to war with the United States at some point, among the many other wars that are brewing. Remember, we're in 2019. We're in December. I just told you about lockdowns and people, being forced to quarantine and work in factories, okay? You're still with me? Now, we got a long way to go here, so hold on, man, hold on. Dr. Doom, Nouriel Roubini, renowned economist, has predicted a historic market crash. Bitcoin down 5% today, and they're saying that's going to go down to 12,000. Anyways, that's neither here nor there, but everywhere. That's probably the only good thing. If you were in 2019 and you heard me say Bitcoin might go down to 12,000, you'd be excited because it was only 5,000. Anyways, so he argues that the Federal Reserve is going to have to either double interest rates to 5% in order to curb inflation, not get rid of it, because that's going to be impossible. But he's also saying that such an increase, of course, is going to choke out economic growth and cause a spike in joblessness and likely cause the stock market to crash back down to the median Shiller price to earnings ratios, which has got a long, long way to go. It's going to cause the housing market, the credit market, private equity market, all to burst effectively. So we're going to see a stagflationary debt crisis that's worse than the 1970s he's predicting. You're still in 2019? All right, good stuff. Now, Europe is likely going to be seeing, get this, a rise in energy costs combined. We're talking about all of Europe now of $2 trillion. 2 trillion pounds or euros, which is essentially the same thing in terms of price parity. They're also saying that 20% of people's income is going to be devoted to energy bills. It's gotten so bad in places like the UK that they now have this game show, I seen this today, where they're going to pay your energy bills. So they have this wheel, and you can either get $1,000 or they're going to pay your outstanding energy bills. And a lot of people are saying that that is quite dystopian, you know, to have what basically is the price of right equivalent, but on the wheel, it's years or a month's worth of groceries. Pay your energy bills, you know, gas for a year, you know, all of these things to help combat inflation. Now, I don't know if the talk show was just trying to be funny, but I think making light of people's real struggles when you're seeing meteoric rises in energy that look like that, you know, I mean, it's pretty crazy. The riots are going to start soon. Let's see what Liz Truss can do to keep the peasantry at bay. She was christened by the Queen yesterday, but apparently that's just symbolic. So, you know, so we're told. Anyways, still in 2019. Now, remember, we're still in 2019. Russia has cut off all gas to Europe, with the exception of some Soviet pipelines. How much of Europe's economy or energy relies on gas and oil? This whole amount right here. You really think it's going to be sunshine and rainbows this winter in Europe? That's going to cause the price of everything to go up, especially over here, but especially there as well. Apparently in Norway, I was sent an email by somebody who said that they're starting to shorten their hours because of electricity costs. They're starting to raise the temperature on their fridges, and they're just having to make all these adjustments that are affecting the ability to access the services that we've become accustomed to, okay? To add insult to injury and to add to the de-dollarization game, Russia and China has now accepted to pay for Russian natural gas in rubles. So if you recall, right before the invasion, there was this landmark deal between Russia and China to sell the Chinese 37 billion yuan worth of, or was it yuan? No, it was dollars worth of gas through this pipeline, 3,000-mile long pipeline. And so, I mean, oil cap or not, the Russians, I don't think they care at this point, okay? So, and that's not going to be good for the dollar. That is going to put lots of stress on the dollar. Right now, the dollar is raging because everywhere else in the world is in the crapper. And the dollar is the last bastion of fiscal hope for the fiat debt bubble that we're currently in. The game was called Spin to Win, and that was ITV's. It's a breakfast show in Britain. That was the one that was raffling off the energy bill paying. Now, in terms of the Russian oil cap, I've been trying to figure out exactly how this is going to go down. Okay, so we're still in 2019. The Russians are no longer going to be able to sell their oil to other countries because, of course, they in World War III, and there's a lot of variables to consider here. Nobody really knows how it's going to play out just yet. But one thing is for certain, that India and China comprise what is now the bulk of Russian oil importers. So even if they can't sell to the European countries, and if the price skyrockets, there really is not going to be any difference. Now, like I say, there's so many moving parts to consider here, like how much of the Russian oil goes by tanker, because the way they're going to enforce this is through the not providing insurance to countries who import Russian oil. And so that's how they're going to try to enforce the sanctions. But only 70% of Russian crude goes by tanker. And where is it going? Which countries is it going to? there's a lot of factors, and I haven't quite figured out exactly how it's going to play out. The price could skyrocket, or it could tank, and the Russians could be fine with it. They're saying that they're not going to sell crude to countries who follow through with the price cap, but maybe they will, because they're still likely going to be making money. And even the Europeans and the Americans have said that they're going to keep the oil price, the oil cap price, at a profitable level, okay? Because I don't think they don't want to hyperinflate the price of oil, but they don't want it to come down that much either, because then the developing oil economies in Canada and the United States shale can't compete. I mean, Canada, we need the price of oil to be above 75 bucks at least in order for it to be profitable in a way which is, you know, really enticing to companies to kind of want to come and do business here. So there's a fine, the Goldilocks zone is like 100 bucks a barrel. I'm guessing if they can keep it there, they'll be happy. And if they can kind of undercut the Russian market a little bit, they will. The problem with that, though, is that Russia has made so much excess revenue off of oil and gas already this year that I don't think they care. And there's a lot of developing countries which might just snuggle up under the Russian nuclear umbrella because, you know, they just think they're going to get a better deal. And if Russia can get them a good deal on oil and gas, then, you know, these developing economies who are going to get shafted by the whole green agenda are going to be looking to countries who are willing to help them modernize. And this is the whole problem with the green agenda. As much as I'm a proponent of doing things that are ecologically sound, we still have to realize that there's billions of people who are still living in abject poverty that need to develop. And in order to do that, they need oil and gas. They need the means in order to do it. And I think we in the West are afraid of that happening. Okay, talked about Bitcoin. Now, what else should we talk about? Let's get into the weather. We're going to get into the war front. Don't worry about that. But California has declared a power grid emergency, level 2 emergency, as energy soars. They've seen the highest temperature ever recorded. I repeat, highest temperature ever recorded in the Bay Area. Okay, and they're just in the middle of this massive heat wave that they're experiencing right now. This heat dome, which is seeing temperatures between 15 to 20 degrees above normal. We had another unusual weather anomaly here in Alberta, in Saskatchewan. Or sorry, Alberta, not Alberta, Saskatchewan. That was dumb. I got so much on my mind, guys. But basically what happened in Medicine Hat was that the temperature rose 10 degrees, get this, in the span of an hour. They're calling this a heat burst. It's a very rare phenomenon that happens when a thunderstorm activity transfers warmer temperatures from high up in the atmosphere downwards towards the Earth's surface. So you can see there was this spike in temperature and it immediately dropped. Probably nothing to do with all the climate chaos, but I just thought that was kind of interesting. Now, let's move on down to Iran. Let's start there. Let's save the crazy stuff for last. Now, apparently, Tom Nides, who is U.S. ambassador to Israel, was quoting Biden when he said, "We are aware of the danger from Iran, and the U.S. will never stop Israel from defending itself against Iran." Now, this nuclear deal is looking less and less likely by the day. You have the Mossad chief in Washington trying to convince the United States to back out of this deal, or to make it so that the Iranians just won't agree to the deal. Okay, so you have Israel not wanting this deal to go through because it's going to allow the Iranians to have a lot of economic benefits as a result of it. Something to the tune of $275 billion in sanctions relief the first year, and up to $1 trillion by 2030 in terms of how it will positively affect their economy, as well, of course, allowing them to get nuclear power to reduce their reliance on other, non-renewable sources, even though nuclear is also non-renewable. Got to turn the Tezzy on here. It's too damn hot in here. If we get no AC for even a minute, it becomes unbearable. I can't imagine what it's going to be like when the grid goes down, boy. Whew. We're not used to these high temps up here. Okay, so where were we? Yes. That statement pretty much says it all right there, that they're never going to stop Israel from doing what they need to do. They just gave them 4, what are they called? Refueling airplanes to assist in a possible attack on Iranian nuclear facilities. So it's looking more and more like that is going to go down, because right now the U.S. has placed what Iran views as excessive demands on them with respect to this nuclear deal, and that is comprised of things like guarantees that they want the U.S. to guarantee that they are not going to back out of the deal a year from now, okay? They want practical verifications that everything is going okay. They want the removal of sanctions in a durable manner. And they also want the IAEA to abandon this investigation that they're conducting, which is looking into whether or not there was nuclear material found at sites where they weren't supposed to be. Now, this is all coming at the same time. This in Sweden, a Swedish intelligence report is claiming that the Iranians were seeking nuclear weapons technology there. As far as I know, the Swedes don't have nuclear weapons, but that's what they're saying. And they're not really disclosing any other information about how they derive that information. They're saying that it's classified, so it's not really falsifiable. But what they're trying to do is trip up the Iranian nuclear deal, okay? You even have an Iranian-Swedish human rights activist, Layla Bazargan, who told Fox News that the Islamic regime of Iran is not a normal government, and the regime is built on the foundation of killing dissidents, hostage takings, bombings, terrorist attacks, and creating chaos. And she says that Europe and the United States must understand that this regime is a danger to world security and must be crushed in the same way as old Adolf was crushed. And of course, the U.S. State Department does designate Iran as the world's leading sponsor of state terrorism. So it's going to go down one way or another. It's looking like it's going to go down. Now, let's get into our 2019 mode once again. I'm just going to list this stuff off in bullet points. Okay? Dmitry Peskov, who's a Kremlin spokesperson, has said that a huge global storm is brewing as a result of this war in Europe. You have Deputy Sergei Ryabkov, who has said that total war has been declared against Russia, and it's being waged in hybrid forms in all areas. And again, that was the former Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Ryabkov. Can't even talk anymore. Europe is going to make it harder and more expensive and more time-consuming for Russian citizens to travel there. You have Vladimir Zelensky saying that Putin must go to hell. Sounds like negotiations and peace talks are going really well. He has said Putin must go to hell, but first he must sit on the bench for the barbaric war crimes he has committed during the invasion. I wonder how that's going to go over in the Kremlin. Japan is upset because Russia is now backing out of the visa-free program, which allowed the Japanese to visit the Kuril Islands, which is this kind of semi-contested region between Japan and Russia. It's a string of islands that Russia lays claim to. They allowed the Japanese to travel there for traditional cultural reasons without requiring visas. They could go freely. They're saying not anymore. That's pissed them off because, of course, Japan has backed the sanctions. You have Russia, who is buying weapons from North Korea. And this is based on declassified intelligence from the New York Times. Take it for what it's worth. The New York Times is usually pretty good, though, I must say. For the most part. They're pretty fair. They're pretty thorough. And they are saying that they're buying artillery shells. I believe it's 122 millimeter and 152 millimeter artillery shells. So that's what they're resorting to. They're also buying drones from Iran. U.S. has cut all ties with Russia on counterterrorism. Now, Biden has stopped short of declaring Russia a sponsor of state terrorism, saying that that would not be constructive, but this would be the first step, would be to suspend all contacts with Russia on the issue of counterterrorism. So I can see them setting the groundwork for declaring Russia a sponsor of state terrorism. They may need some sort of event to transpire before they can pin the tail on that donkey. Now, last but not least, I want to talk about the incident that has been transpiring in the province here of Saskatchewan for the last few days. As many of you know, there was a mass casualty incident. I don't even know what they're calling it nowadays, because it wasn't. It was a mass stabbing incident. 11 people have died, 19 injured, and one of the guys was caught. They're not sure what exactly happened there. He was injured, and I guess he died from those injuries. And the other guy is still on the loose. But get a load of the rap sheet of one of the guys, okay? This is... But people like this are able to walk in our society is a testament to our downfall. So Sanderson, who's 30, only 30 years old, he's racked up 59 convictions for assault, assault with a weapon, uttering threats, assaulting a police officer, and robbery. Roughly half these offenses were for breaches or failure to comply with pre-existing orders, which is pretty normal. Nonetheless, 25, convictions, violent crime, that should be enough to land you in jail for a long, long time. Because of his violent behavior, he has a lifetime prohibited weapons ban. I don't think they understand what a prohibited weapons ban is. Everybody is banned from using prohibited weapons. What they mean is he is banned from acquiring firearms legally, because there's 3 designations of firearms: non-restricted, restricted, and prohibited. You can't have prohibited. I just think this is outrageous that a guy like this with a rap sheet that long can be able to walk freely within our society. Meanwhile, you have law-abiding gun owners who are sent to jail for a minimum sentence of 5 years because they might have forgot their registration that they take to go to the gun range, when they're driving home from the gun range or something like that. So it's just a mixed up world we're living in, and it's no surprise that it's all crashing down. And, here we are in 2022. I can't imagine what 2023 is going to be like if we get there at this rate, because a perfect storm is brewing. And you guys need to keep getting prepared for it. Don't be desensitized to all this stuff. If you are, then just stop watching for a while and, go and... it's harvest time, so get out there in the garden and make sure that you're tending to that garden in the way that it should be. Thanks for watching, my friends. You take care. Canadian Prepper out.